Alright, now it's time for Chapter 2. Jim Luck entered the baseball season with a reserved optimism, following peak years which could not reasonably maintain its record-breaking pace. He would turn 50 years old in June, and felt mortality tap him on the shoulder. Murray Silver, Text Luck. Chapter 2, Luck in the Volcano. Most folks believe that Abner Doubleday invented the game of baseball in Cooperstown in 1839, but they're dead wrong. The truth is this: Doubleday had a friend named Abe Graves, who, when Doubleday died, decided to cash in on the growing popularity of baseball by writing a letter to the Mills Commission, which had been created by Congress to investigate the origins of the American pastime, saying that he had been there when Abner Doubleday wrote down the rules of the game. The Mills Commission took his word as fact, even though Doubleday had never set foot in Cooperstown, or even made any such claim. But Abe Graves wouldn't have much time to celebrate his fabricated role in the history books. Not long after, he murdered his wife in a fit of rage, and spent his remaining days in an asylum for the insane, ranting to anyone who would listen that he'd been there when baseball was invented. Now, the fact is that nobody invented the game. It just slowly evolved into what it is today, from similar overseas games. But if you want to give credit where credit is due to a real American hero, then give it to Alexander Cartwright. Cartwright wrote the Knickerbocker rules, which said, among other things, that you can hit a runner with the ball to get him out. Before that, people were getting their teeth knocked out, going home with black eyes, sometimes even dying from concussions. It was a brutal game back then, and Cartwright saved a lot of lives with his new rules. But believe me, modern baseball could be a savage thing too. And the first time I played it, I learned that lesson pretty quickly. For my 5th birthday, Granddad had got me one of those plastic gloves he used to make in the 60s, and took me into the backyard and told me something I never forgot. Even when I started playing college ball. "Henry," he said, "you can throw that ball as fast as you want. But if you don't keep the hitter surprised, he's gonna get it every time. You've gotta throw it fast, but slow. And sometimes you gotta hit him if you want him to take you seriously." And with that, he threw the baseball as hard as he could, right in my face. The ball busted my lips open, blood started pouring down my chin and neck, and I burst into tears on the spot. Mama came out, and him and her got into a big fight. But I see now that this was a good lesson, something I remembered at least. Years went by and I developed into a fairly decent ball player, largely thanks to Granddad's instruction. In the fall of 1977, I was accepted to Georgia Tech on an athletic scholarship full ride. And it was a good thing too, because my grades sure as night wouldn't have. The head coach's name was Jim Luck. No joke. I thought, shoot, with a name like Jim Luck at my back, I might as well give it a shot. Coach Luck had come to a few of our high school games when he found out that a 17-year-old kid could throw a 90-mile-per-hour fastball. And I guess I impressed him enough for him to take me on. To be honest, it was 88 miles per hour. But when word spreads in the South, it can exaggerate a bit. See, they didn't have radar guns readily available at every high school. At every high school in the country like they do nowadays. So me and Frank and Alice had gone out to the highway where there was one of those big speedometer signs that tells cars how fast they're going. And I just threw the ball after ball until it registered on the sign. 88 miles per hour, it said. A lot of people call bullshit on that. They say those signs couldn't pick up a baseball, but it's true. The story I'm going to tell you is a pretty famous one. You might have read about it in the papers, or maybe you've seen it on the television if you're the type that follows sports. It's a story of a near-perfect game, and it's also a story of how everything went to shit. Here's how it started. I was 2 years into my college ball career. We were fighting for a spot in the playoffs, and Luck told me, "Turner, I don't want this to affect your pitching tonight." but there's gonna be some major league scouts at the game. You ignore that though. I want you to throw like it was a high school game, one that you know you're gonna win. Thing is, of course, when you tell a kid to ignore something, the last thing he's gonna do is ignore it. I guess that was the point. Luck was putting on the pressure, seeing how I played with it, and whether I had the guts for the playoff games. Now, I ain't telling you this because I'm proud of it, and I sure wouldn't recommend it, but I had been taking speed since I was 16, and it seemed to help my pitching. All kinds. Whatever you could get, and by the time I was 19, I was swallowing pills between innings in order to keep my heart rate up. Trouble was, while it made my fastball the toughest in the league, it made my changeup, well, unpredictable. I had a difficult time calming myself down enough to throw it how I wanted to, which was both good and bad, I guess. You can't pitch a ball you don't expect, just as much as you can't hit a ball you don't expect. The game started off smoothly, and Virginia be damned. By the fourth inning, I hadn't let a single hit go by. It was a strike after strike, giving the boys enough of a taste to fly out, but not enough of a taste to take a mound. And it felt like a laser beam from my hand to the catcher's mitt. Al Jackson. He was a senior, and probably the best hand behind the plate you could possibly have. I once saw him catch a pop fly, and then run down the third base runner in under 10 seconds. The ball was back to the pitcher's mound by the time you could say the hell just happened. So it was me and Al having a religious experience between the two of us. He would set him up, and I would knock him down like they were cold drinks on a hot day in a dark bar. I don't know how it happened. Shit, I don't even remember most of it happening. But somehow it was the 8th inning, and I was begging Coach Luck to leave me in so I could pitch a no-hitter in front of those major league scouts. That would clinch it, I figured. They would come to check out this Mickey Mouse college organization hoping for something they could work with, and said they'd see a record breaker for the history books. Coach Luck was a little apprehensive though. Turner, you're just a kid. And if I leave you and for the stretch of this game, you're going to get tired. I'm telling you, your arm ain't ready for this kind of work. He went on like that for a while, but he relented eventually, because, well, sometimes we all want to believe in magic, even if you know deep down that it's the sleight of a quick hand. One thing I knew for sure, I wasn't taking any chances, at least not this late in the game. Got to take a leak before the top of the ninth back in 5, Coach. I was starting to crash, and had to get my head straight for the next 20 pitches. I jogged off to the locker room to grab the stash in my locker that I kept aside the little Jesus statuette. You know those little novelty ceramics that you find at truck stops? It started off as a joke at first. When I turned 16 and got my driver's license, me and Alice celebrated with a road trip to New Orleans, and we made it a point to stop at every low-down redneck truck stop from Georgia to Louisiana. The best ones had an entire shelf dedicated to religious figurines, and we would just stash as many of them in their pockets as we could fit, then walk right out to the car. Sometimes we'd make love in the bathroom before walking out with the lid, hands in our pockets, whistling like the obvious thieves we were. Over the years, it became an obsession. By the time I had my own locker at Georgia Tech, I'd put together a small army of little Jesuses, apostles, crosses, eagles, hell, even holy dragons. And I'd hold out a handful of them to hold tiny bags of pills. When you're coming down from an upper, it feels a little like you haven't eaten in a while, which you probably haven't, and your body just seems like it's drained by some invisible vampire, which, well, it has, sorta. And did the shakes, man, your hands start trembling just a little at first, and it just keeps getting worse until you either take something else or sleep off. I didn't have the luxury of sleeping off until heading back to the mound. So I cracked open a little Jesus and grabbed a couple of amphetamine pills, put a couple backups in my pocket just to make sure I stayed straight for the rest of the game. It was hot in that field, the kind of sick heat that happens in the South, and my uniform felt like a warm puddle of soup against my skin. You could almost see the steam rising off of people's skin. And when I wound up for the first pitch of the inning, I could feel my body turning against me. Dehydration. All that shit coursing through my veins, the damn heat. And when I let go of the fastball, a sharp pain stabbed me right in my heart, like the twist of a rusty knife. crack. The bastard laid a grounder right past the shortstop, and there I was, bent over, clutching my chest like I'd just taken a bullet. With the runner safe on first, Al called a timeout and jogged to the mound. Hank, what the hell? Where did that come from? Shit, you gonna be alright? But the pain had left as quickly as it started. I dusted off my pants and worked the ball into my glove. Been a long day, Al. Guy's allowed to let a hit go by, isn't he? Listen, let me finish where I started. Tell you what, I'm gonna work this next guy off the plate with a few brushes, and then take him out with a split finger. Now, get back to that plate. I'm gonna need your help to end this. Next up, this scrawny little guy. Andrews was his name, I think. And while he couldn't hit long, he could run fast, and the last thing we needed was someone like that on base, with all 1-run difference. I threw it hard, right below his elbow. He jerked away from the pitch in outrage, dropped his bat, took off the helmet, and gave me a "what the fuck" kind of gesture. But when he got back up to the plate, he was considerably further away from it than before. It was perfect, and I was feeling the adrenaline from the pitch and the pills, so he got set up to do it again. But I paused for a second, lowered my head, and made a sign of the cross on my body. God forgive these hands of mine, I mumbled to myself. I gritted my teeth real tight and aimed it right at his head. Took a long wind-up this time and threw it hard. Thwack! Bullseye. The guy had taken an 80-mile-per-hour ball right to his helmet and was squirming on the ground in pain. The umpire called a timeout. It took a few minutes, but Andrews eventually got up and took his place on first. And now there was a meeting on the mound with the powers that be. Jim Luck, Al Jackson, and an obviously furious umpire. You keep that dirty shit out of this game, kid! I've been calling games for 15 years and seen 3 people die. No, fuck. You keep that dirty shit out this game, kid. I've been calling games for 15 years and seen 3 people die from a bean to the head. And if you think I'm gonna stand by and watch you kill a man for your own win, then you got another thing coming. Coach Luck calmed him down, and I assured him that it had been an accident. But when the umpire stormed away, Luck was just as pissed off. I'm taking you out, Turner. Give me the ball. He held out an open hand. Coach, listen, I hit that kid, but I got it together now. One more out. That's all I need, and then it's the game. Give me that ball, Turner. Coach, listen, let me make you a deal. You give me one more pitch, just one more pitch, and if it ain't a strike, then you can take me out. I've got 2 here on the line. Those scouts are out there watching, and if you take me out on the spot, they're going to think that both me and you don't got the guts to see this thing through. One pitch. That's all I'm asking. Just one more pitch. Luck dropped his arms to his side, and he let out a deep, long sigh. He shook his head in bewilderment, like he couldn't believe what he was going to do. Okay, one pitch, kid. You throw that thing, anything other than a strike, I'm not only pulling you, but you're going to sit out for the entire goddamn playoffs. With that, he walked slowly off the field, looking almost defeated. The stupid things people will do in the name of hope. So there it was, the precipice. Almost like leaning over the edge of an active volcano and debating whether or not you should just jump on in. It reminded me of the first time I drove a car. I was 12 and had gone off to the bar with Granddad, like we did sometimes. The bartender would give me shots of grenadine, which I'd chase with a Coke. And I'd get to act tough and listen to all the stories they'd tell. That night, he got fighting drunk pretty early in the night, and we got kicked out. When we got to the car, he took out his keys, handed them over, and just sort of swayed back and forth while staring at me intently. You gonna jump into that volcano or walk home like a fool? Humiliated. I rubbed the dirt out of my eyes and settled into my stance. Next up was Ramirez. Big guy, strong hair. But while I was sizing him up, Al started jumping all around, screaming at me, and pointing to third. I came back into focus, but by the time I realized that the runner was stealing third, it was too late. I got the ball to third, but he was already dusting himself off, giving me this smug smile that I would have smacked right off of him if we'd been in the street instead of the stadium. One more pitch, I remember praying, Lord, I know I ain't been all that good, but if you give me this strike, then I swear it, I'll walk a righteous path for the rest of my days. Just one strike, that's all. That's when it hit me. This bastard's gonna expect me to brush him off for giving him the fastball, and he's gonna be ready for it. But shit, if I lob him an easy changeup, then he's just gonna swing right past it. It was a gamble, but what audacity. This was the kind of stuff people go to see baseball for. The kind of stuff you don't see every day. But first I had to calm myself down from the pills to throw it. I took a deep breath and did a quick wind-up from the stretch. Felt like a dream, or rather a nightmare from the moment the ball left my hand. I had overextended. The pain in my arm was the kind of imaginary pain that only happens in the worst nightmares. I hit the ground, writhing, holding onto my shoulder like it was about to come apart from my body. I had never been in that kind of hurt before, and it didn't seem real. You could see the confusion in Ramirez's face, and he started to swing too early and caught himself. He lined himself up perfectly with a full, strong swing, sent the ball sailing into left field. The rest of the night is mostly gone for me. I remember the stretcher, the painkillers, the amphetamines in my back pocket getting taken, the cops, and the face of a sad, defeated Jim Locke. Found out later that Pete Welzer had run down the ball in left field and snagged it out of the sky before it went over the fence. We won the game. Got sent ahead into the playoffs, but I was out for the season. Forever, in fact. And now there was an investigation into whether Georgia Tech had been supplying their players with supplements and narcotics. It wasn't so much the humiliation of getting cut or even losing the scholarship and getting cut from the team. Hell, was it even the failure of it all? It was how quickly it came down. One minute you're a wild animal, and the next you're shackled up with every reason to continue squeezed out of you. Into the volcano? Hell. Once you're down in it, you can never get back. And that's what I say, and that's why I say at least. Short chapter.